There's no doubt that the Nigerian financial services industry has been evolving slowly in the last decade, and like any sector undergoing significant regulatory-led transformation, the industry has had its fair share of variability and challenges. The wide range of economic liberalization and deregulation measures following the adoption of a structural adjustment program resulted in the emergence of more banks and other financial intermediaries. My name is Peace Hyde, and this is My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV. During the period of 1892 and 1952, there was an inquiry by the colonial administration to investigate banking practice in Nigeria. The G.D. Payton report, which emanated from the inquiry, was the basis for the first banking ordinance of 1952. The ordinance was designed to ensure orderly commercial banking and to prevent the establishment of unviable banks. But when the banking system fails, who will be brave enough to take responsibility and turn things around? Our next guest was the right man for the job. Let's take a look at who he is. His Highness Muhammadu Sanusi II, born Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, was born in Kano on the 31st of July 1961. He was crowned on the 8th of June 2014 as the Emir of Kano. Emir Sanusi II was a successful banker and the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. He was appointed on the 3rd of June 2009 for a 5-year term, but was subsequently suspended from office by President Goodluck Jonathan on the 20th of February 2014 after exposing a $20 billion fraud committed by the President's associates in the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC. In August 2009, Sanusi led the central bank to rescue Afribank, Intercontinental Bank, Union Bank, Oceanic Bank, and Finbank by bailing them out with 400 billion naira of public money and dismissed their chief executives. The global financial intelligence magazine, The Banker, published by the Financial Times, has conferred on Sanusi the Global Award for the Central Bank Governor of the Year. Time magazine also listed Sanusi in its Time 100 list of the most influential people of 2011. In 2013, Sanusi was also awarded a special GIFA award at the 3rd Global Islamic Finance Awards held in Dubai for his advocacy role in promoting Islamic banking and finance in Nigeria during his stint as governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. In 2011, he was also given the prestigious award of the Forbes Africa Person of the Year. You are watching My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV, and today we are honored to have joining us His Highness Muhammadu Sanusi II, CON Sarkin Kanu. Thank you very much for joining us on My Worst Day, Forbes Africa TV.
Thank you very much, Peace.
Now, I'd like to start off first and foremost by asking, who is the Emir Sanusi II?
A tough one. I suppose you're not asking about my biography, having been a governor of Central Bank and a banker professionally, before then an academic. In terms of the role, it's a heritage role. The Kano Kingdom, as you know, has been in existence for over 1,000 years, and my particular dynasty has been ruling Kano for over 200 years. And prior to the colonial administration and the post-independence government, this institution used to be effectively the government of the area, and the Kano Emirate is contiguous to Kano State now, about 12 million people. The Emirate was actually much larger than what Kano State is today. There are about 2 other Emirates, Ringim and Dudze, that were carved out of Kano Emirate when Jigawa State was created. So it's a role that basically is a religious, traditional role, but it's also one that has a a tremendous amount of influence in terms of being an advisory role to political authorities and collaboration in the delivery of public services.
Right. Now, before you took up this position, you had quite a focused career path in the financial sector, with your first job starting at Icon Limited, and as you rose to Group Managing Director of First Bank Nigeria. Now, could you please share with us a little bit more about that journey?
Well, I came into banking more or less by accident. I had, in terms of profession, my plan as an undergraduate was always to go on for a master's and a PhD and be an academic economist. And I did start with postgraduate work. I did start teaching in the university. And then when it was time for a PhD, in 1985, the government, in 1984 actually, the government of the then General Muhammadu Buhari, faced with exactly similar situations that we're in now when he came into office, had to put in a lot of exchange controls similar to what we have. And one of the controls put in was a ban on fellowships and scholarships abroad for disciplines that were available in Nigerian universities. And for many of us young academics, the attraction of being in academia was the opportunity to go to America or the UK or France and do a doctorate, get that exposure. And I decided I didn't want to start a PhD in Nigerian university and apply to a bank. And that was how I got into banking. And I started off as a corporate finance person because Icon was a subsidiary of Morgan Guarantee of New York and Baring Brothers, and had a very strong corporate finance department. So I was in one of the issuing houses, did a number of issuing house activities. Later, I was head of financial advisory services, did a lot of debt restructuring, mergers and acquisitions, and debt conversion, and so on. And then took time off to go to the Sudan to study Islamic law. Came back to UBA and then went into risk management. Since I have never really been what you'd call an out-and-out commercial banker, I wasn't. I've always tended to the more intellectual aspects, elements of banking, and risk management at that time, with the whole BAL 2 was the cutting edge and the most intellectual piece of banking. And I rose to be the chief risk officer in UBA, from where I was invited by First Bank to be a chief risk officer as a director. And after 4 or 5 years, asked to take on the role of the CEO.
Now, when I look at the reach of your career, from banking and now as the Emir of Kano, you've had a very, very challenging journey, I'm sure, as most successful people would experience. But I must ask, what is your worst day in business so far?
I think it will have to go down to the moment I came to the conclusion that the money that belonged to the Nigerian people was being taken away from them as governor of Central Bank. I mean, I had, for many years, basically I'd expressed some concern about reserves not going up, but it never really hit me. I always thought there was some explanation of maybe the profit sharing contracts, production sharing contracts were not favorable to Nigeria. The oil companies were taking the bulk of the revenues, we were getting too little of it. Maybe we had all sorts of financing arrangements with oil companies, and therefore the revenues were going to pay off those debts. Maybe an NPC had borrowed from banks and was paying off the banks. I think when I came face to face with the reality that money was actually coming in and not being remitted, that subsidies were being paid on a product even though there was an existing presidential order not to pay subsidy on kerosene, that there were so-called strategic alliance agreements that had given people with absolutely no background in oil exploration the opportunity to take oil from Nigeria, ship it, and keep the money. I was devastated, and I had to take the very difficult decision of keep quiet, and just hang on for the remaining few months I had in my term and just live in peace, or speak up.
At the point that you uncovered this, what was going through your mind? I know that you said, okay, I could leave or I could actually face it head on. What were your fears? What were your reservations?
In my life, I've always defined myself by the commitment to speak the truth to power. And this is not something that started in Central Bank. Anyone who knows me throughout my life knows me from there, like that, from my days as a students' union activist, to my days as a radical academic, to my days in banking. If you actually just Google my name, you would see all sorts of articles and all sorts of debates I've had over 30 years with different people on politics, on religion, and it's always been my life to say things as I see them. So when I was faced with the banking crisis, I knew I had basically two options. Okay, one option is to do what the central bank had always done, which central banks in the world did, which is to say, let the banks fail. But when a bank fails, people just see that one bank has failed. What they don't see is the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people who had been destroyed, who had money in those banks. And these people are generally voiceless. So the other option, obviously, was to say, look, no matter how much it costs the system, we need to make the investment necessary to protect those poor people. So when I went to the president, I basically gave him those two options and said, you will take the decision, but this is what I feel. And my feeling is that we should protect the poor people, but there are implications to that. I'd have to remove the management of the banks. I would have to go after the debtors, and these are very rich people and very powerful people who had borrowed billions from the banks and not paid back. Would also need to prosecute some. And he said, you know what, I agree with you. We can't allow this to continue. And he then said, do you need help? I said, I need the FCC to prosecute, because I don't prosecute for financial crimes, because I think financial crimes have been committed. I need the police for protection of my people, for protection of the banks and general security. I need the SSS to make sure that these people who we want to try do not escape from the country. And that was exactly what made our interventions possible.
From that moment, what actions did you proceed to take?
Well, the first obviously was to remove the MDs of the banks that were in a grave situation, then put in liquidity to make sure that the banks remained afloat, and then begin the process of the legislation that would set up an asset management company that would ultimately take over the toxic assets and also put in capital in the banks and prepare them for mergers and acquisitions, and then prosecute any cases of criminal activity. So those were basically the steps.
So as you were trying to carry out this detoxifying process, what were some of the major challenges that you faced?
Well, the first challenge was obviously the resistance that you get from the system. Many of the people who had borrowed money from banks were very powerful people, and the bank chief executives had become extremely powerful pre-2009. They had strong political connections, and it was important, first of all, to confront that group. The second thing was going through the entire legislative process, and even within the central bank, there was very little understanding of what AMCON was supposed to be.
What series of events led to the suspension from that post, and how did you feel when that took place?
We have in the central bank what's called the Governor's Consultative Committee. It's made up of all the departmental directors, then the deputy governors and the governor. We used to meet once in a quarter to review the economy. At several of these meetings, I had complained that I was not at all satisfied that we had understood what was happening to revenues. Okay, because some numbers didn't add up to me. So for example, in 2012, average oil price was $113 a barrel. In 2013, it was $112. So just a $1 difference, not much. Production in 2012 was 2.3 million barrels a day. 2030 was about 2.2, so or 2.25, about 50,000 barrels a day difference. Now, yet between 2012 and 2013, government oil revenues collapsed by $10 billion. And I couldn't understand that. Why would you have a situation in which, without a collapse in oil price, without a collapse in oil revenue, you've got this huge in output, you have this huge drop in revenue? And I said, and I was like, listen, directors, what are you doing? You know, you can't just be reporting numbers. You've got to be more critical about it, because at the end of the day, my interest as central bank governor was, if we were not trapping these revenues, then the stability we had achieved, and you will recall that this was a point when we had fixed the banking system, we had modernized the payment system, we had set up AMCON, and that was well on course. We had built up reserves, we had a stable exchange rate, we had brought inflation down to 8%, 8.something%, the lowest in decades. And so the central bank had delivered 100% on its mandate, but I could see all of that being blown apart if something happened to oil price, because we're not. So that was then the next line. How do you then protect that stability? And so the initial report I got was, well, look, we have been seeing a huge and increasing gap between the value of crude oil shipped from Nigeria and the amount of money paid in by NNPC. And the director mentioned a number, and I said, well, okay, you know what? This was I think July or so in 2013. And I said, you know what? Why don't you just go back to just January last year and now? You don't have to go back 10 years. Let's do a quick analysis. Just go back January last year and now. Bring out from your records how much crude we exported and how much money we got in. And he came back with numbers that showed a difference of $49 billion. And I said, I don't believe this. I got his deputy governor to look at the numbers again, to call the two directors in operations and reserve management, and they looked at the numbers and they came out with the same number. Okay, so naturally I was in great shock. So I thought the best thing was to write to the president and draw his attention to this. And the reason is, as a banker, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my customer, to tell him if I think there's something wrong. So I wrote to the president and said, look, Mr. President, I'm concerned that reserves are not going up, and this is basically what's happening. From my records, this is how much crude oil we shipped, this is how much NNPC paid, there's a gap of 49 billion that needs to be explained. If this continues, we're going to have a big problem if the price of oil comes down. We can't protect interest rates, we can't protect exchange rates, we can't protect reserves. We may have to tighten money in order to fight inflation. There'll be unemployment, government revenues will suffer, and so all the things we're seeing today. This was in August 2013. The president received the letter and did nothing.
There was no reaction at all?
There was no response to me. There was no response to me. I saw him several times in meetings. After that, he said nothing.
What did you deduce from that, the silence?
Well, I didn't know. The only thing I know was a few weeks after that, the finance minister had called me to say, oh, Governor, can we do some reconciliation on all revenue numbers? And I said, Minister, I report to the president. I have written to the president. If the president wants me to sit with you and do reconciliation, the president would tell me. that I should sit with you. I'm not going to, because apparently he had passed the letter on to her, but there was no response to me. So again, as governor, I guarded the independence of the central bank jealously, and I didn't want a situation where I would be seen to be reporting to the finance minister. So if the president said, sit down and look at these numbers, fine. Anyway, so he did nothing. I heard nothing until in January or December, I don't know, either December 2013 or January 2014, General Obasanjo wrote this famous open letter to Jonathan. And in that letter, he now referred to the letter of the central bank governor. Because apparently somebody had laid their hands on that letter. And this is Nigeria. It's 4 months, long enough for somebody to have leaked the letter to someone. Either from the presidency, or from finance, or from petroleum, or from the central bank, I don't know. But the letter had gone to someone. Later, I think a few weeks ago, Governor Rotimi Amechi announced to the world that he was the one who obtained a copy of the letter and leaked it. So I don't know where he got it. He didn't say where he got it. Anyway, after Obasanjo's letter, all hell now broke loose. And now we know it was Amechi. The letter was then leaked to online media and newspapers, and it became public. And that was when the president now said, got angry, and then we then had to sit down and do reconciliation.
When it got leaked, what was you thinking? Did you anticipate that this could be the end of your position?
I'll be honest with you. In my mind, I believed that this kind of thing could not be happening without very senior people knowing. And when you take a decision to, and before then, if you I don't know whether you've seen my TEDx video, I had talked about this. I knew that taking on the NNPC was taking on the most powerful minister in Jonathan's government, and nobody who had touched Tizani had survived. So it was not a question of what would happen. I just didn't care at that time. I did not want to go down in history as having seen this and kept quiet. And that was because, look at my role. I've always said that I never saw the being governor of central bank as an end. It was never really an ambition for me. It was a job. You know, I would leave it anyway. Even if I wasn't sacked, my term would end anyway. And I decided I didn't want a second term because I didn't have the kind of relationship with the people I was working with that made me look forward to another 5 years. Okay, so the only reason I stayed was because I believed if you're called to serve your country, or I was convinced by my uncle, the previous emir, that if you ask to serve your country, you don't just walk away. You have a 5-year term, complete the term, and then go. But in my mind, I was always ready to leave any time. So it wasn't an issue. The real issue for me was to get to the bottom of what it was. So after the first round of reconciliation, we discovered that, okay, there was $29 billion that was explained. And how was that explained? Basically, the crude that was shipped by NNPC did not entirely belong to NNPC. Okay, so for example, under production sharing contracts, all companies were supposed to pay petroleum profits tax and royalty, but they paid in crude. This is to the tax agency. So NNPC was actually shipping this crude on behalf of tax agency. So the money did come into the central bank, but it came in through the account of FIRS, not NNPC. But there was, our guys didn't know that working. So they worked that out. That was fine. 29, and we, frankly, for us in the central bank, we wanted to have an explanation for all the 49. If we turned out to be wrong, we'd be very happy, because no central bank governor or no Nigerian would like to believe that there was so much money that was not accounted for. But after that 29, all being said, there was no reasonable explanation for 20. Now, part of it you could justify as a fuel subsidy, but there was, for example, if you look at the PwC report, the numbers keep coming up. There was $6 billion from NPDC that never came to NNPC account, never came to the Federation account. It's still in the PwC report. PwC asked the management of NPDC, they sent emails, they sent letters, they refused to meet them during the audit. It's in the PwC report. So that's $6 billion gone. And nobody's, to date, not even in this government, nobody has come out to say they have found that $6 billion. There are billions of dollars paid as kerosene subsidy. And I had evidence that President Yar'Adua had written and directed that kerosene subsidy should be stopped, that the PPRA, which is the agency that pays subsidy, had officially accepted that, and therefore NNPC had no right to pay that subsidy. And that kerosene was actually not subsidized because the price in the market was 170, 200 naira, and not 50. So the fact that NNPC tells me I paid subsidy on kerosene doesn't explain anything. If they had no legal right to pay that subsidy, they've just taken away money from the Federation. And especially when I know that in reality, there was no subsidy in the market, so I know that this was just money that was being shared by people. It's like the Forex business. If I can get $1 million today at 200 naira, I can sell at 345. That gives me 145 million naira profit for doing nothing. And the same thing happened with kerosene. You know, a vessel would be purchased for $30 million, sold to people for 10, and they turned around and sold for 32, 33. So who took the $23 million? You know, somebody was taking it. I can't prove it, but I know that this was a subsidy that did not exist. So, so you then have this debate over whether the money was missing or just unaccounted for. You know, the fact was that it was illegally withheld from the Federation account.
Who do you think was responsible for that?
The NNPC was doing it. I mean, in all my documentation, in everything I said publicly, I placed all the blame squarely on NNPC. Now, was NNPC doing this on its own? I don't think so. And certainly there was a supervising minister who was the chairman of the board of NNPC, who cannot just continue to claim not knowing what happened. And this was basically my issue. So anyway, in the middle of all this, the president calls me and says, and it's a strange meeting. I got a call and he said I should see him at 3 p.m. And so I turned up at 3 p.m. and the entire place was like it had been swept. There was no one apart from the security services. Eerie silence. I got in his office, it was just me and him. It's as if everybody had been asked to go. And so he says to me, you know, he's calling me because he's surprised that a letter I wrote to him got to Obasanjo. I said, yeah, I'm surprised too. He said, no, that he's calling me because he thinks I know who gave Obasanjo the letter. And I said, no, I don't. So that letter must have been given by the central bank. And I said, the letter was in different places. It was in the villa, it was in petroleum, it was in finance, it was in the CBN. And by the way, Obasanjo has been a president, so he's lived in this villa for 8 years. And he's more likely to have sources inside this villa than inside the central bank. But of course, that wasn't the purpose of the meeting. And so we came to the purpose. Said, look, he said he's convinced that that letter went from the central bank to Obasanjo. And I had 24 hours to find who leaked the letter or sack somebody, the director who prepared the letter, or my secretary, or somebody in the central bank. And if I didn't sack them, then that was proof that I leaked the letter. and therefore I should resign. So, of course, that was the purpose of the meeting.
What was your opinion on that ultimatum?
Well, I said to him, well, first, I'm surprised that I'm being asked to resign for raising an alarm over missing funds, and the minister who's in charge of the portfolio has not been asked to resign. And from then, I knew I'd signed my equivalent of a death warrant. If you make that kind of statement, that was it, and I knew. But I basically said I was not resigning.
Oh, okay.
I said I wouldn't. I said I had no intention of resigning. And he said to me, and then he went very angry. Once I mentioned the minister, obviously he got very angry. His countenance changed, and he said, whether you like it or not, you're going to leave that office, and I cannot continue to work with you. And either you or I would leave government. So I knew that I was not going to see the end of my term. It was just a matter of time. So he told me. And so I thanked him, shook his hand, and left. I was amused that the concern was not so much that there was a possibility of so much corruption, but that somebody had written a letter about it, or that somebody had leaked the letter. I was concerned that even if I had leaked the letter of Obasanjo, I'd be surprised that leaking the letter is a far more serious crime than leaking money. So I think the irony was something that was missing.
Was there any point at that time where you were in fear of your life? Because for someone to...
No, what I did was I came down and then went straight to the office of the Principal Secretary to the President, Ambassador Hassan Tukur, and I met him with a gentleman from Kano who was the Foreign Minister, Ambassador Emir Muhammadu. And I said to them, okay, gentlemen, I'm coming to you because I've just had a meeting with the President and there were no witnesses. And the President has threatened me. And I repeated what happened in the meeting, and I said to them, I'm telling the two of you, and I'm going to tell people close to me just so that they know that if anything happens to me, it is the President. Okay? So they then said, no, I shouldn't talk to people. And I said, I would have to tell my family. Anyway, I did tell people close to me, and then through them, I think the newspapers went and picked up a story, and it was then headlines. Even though the papers thought it was a telephone conversation, they didn't know it was a face-to-face meeting, and it came out. And people talked, people intervened and said to him, you can't do that. But I knew it was just a matter of time, for this to happen. So I wasn't totally surprised. The thing with doing the kind of thing I did is, first of all, you've got to make sure that you don't play into the hands of your enemies, okay? That you don't do anything wrong. So for example, when I was suspended and there were all these allegations that they published, it was a good thing they did, because there were 38 specific and totally false allegations. And once they're false, it's easy to prove that they're false. You see, if they were smart, they would have just said, oh, the governor has been suspended because we have evidence of huge fraud and corruption and blah, and some vague allegations. And then I would spend the rest of my life trying to convince people that they were lying. But when you now say you did A, B, C, D, E, F, because they relied on some guy who is supposed to be head of Financial Reporting Council who doesn't understand accounting, and he wrote all these allegations that were very easy to disprove because the documents were there. So it was easy to then take them one by one, reply, publish a response, and that was it.
You were given the opportunity to...
I wasn't even asked to, but the point is the allegations were out there.
Yes.
And once the allegations were out there, I was obliged to respond. They put them online. So I responded, I published in the newspapers, I took allegation 1, these were the facts, these are the documents, 2, and I made it, and put it out there. And since then, nothing. I don't think I was really in fear of my life. I mean, even if you don't like someone, you've got to be, Jonathan was not the kind of person in his nature that would have someone killed. He wasn't that kind of leader. He didn't have that kind of. I don't think that there have ever been allegations of him arranging to have someone. So I never really had that kind of fear. No, I don't.
Going through this process, allegations are coming out. You're refuting them. Was there any point that you had even a morsel of regret or doubt as to whether you did the right thing?
No, because I had thought through all the implications of what I was going to do. Naturally, people who are close to you come to you and say, listen, why don't you just keep quiet like everybody else? You know, you can't take on the state. You know, I mean, I've been told all sorts of things. I've been told I'd be removed, I've been investigated, I've been put in jail. I remember Ben Murray Bruce, who's now a senator, coming to me to say that he had it on good authority that if I went to the Senate with my documents, I would be removed, I would be investigated, and I'd be imprisoned. And I said, why would I be imprisoned? And he said, well, you know, you've worked in government. I've worked in government. If people really want to find something on you and they come in the central bank, 5 years, if they come and look, they will find something. And I was like, well, they will find it if I've done it. I mean, they can plant something, but if I haven't done, I mean, yeah, maybe there was a mistake. Maybe it's possible somebody under me had done something I wasn't aware of. But to the best of my knowledge, in all my years in central bank, I had done nothing that should put me in prison. However, I said to him, tell the president from me that if the punishment for going to the Senate is prison, he doesn't need to go through all of that. Just ask him to tell me what prison he wants me to go to and for how many years, and I'll drive myself there.
Wow.
Okay, and that was the message. I said, I'm ready to go. Just tell me, go to Enugu prison for 4 years. I'll drive myself, take care of myself for 4 years, and come out.
Why would you be willing to go to prison?
Because it's nothing. What's a prison? It's a place. It's a place. Go and sleep. Go and sleep, eat for 4 years, and come out.
Even though you were innocent.
If that was the in a manner of speaking, if that would make any difference, yeah. I mean, for me, the message was, I'm not going to be frightened by a threat of putting me in prison. Okay, it's not the end of the world. So yeah, but you don't have to fabricate any of it. You don't even have to go through the process of looking for something. Mm-hmm. Just tell me to go.
At this point, what was going through your mind in terms of your own future, in terms of your career? What was the next step? What did you anticipate happening? You know,
you've got to deal with people's psychology. And one of the things I said to Murray Bruce is, I'm a prince. And you need to understand the psychology of princes. The best place for a prince to be is a place where he can be a hero. And at this point, I've reached a point where I cannot lose.
Right.
Okay? I said, if the president brings me down, I'm a hero for having been brought down while defending 20 billion belonging to Nigerian people. If I bring the president down, I'm a hero for bringing him down while defending 20 billion of Nigerian people. There was no way the president was going to win this. The only way he was going to win was to sack his petroleum minister and investigate the money. If he did not do that, he would never win. So, yeah, so if the president suspends the governor of central bank, yeah, what is that? I mean, yeah, he's the president of Nigeria. It's no glory.
Right.
You appoint the governor, you suspend him, or you sack him, yeah. What is important is if you come out in this kind of battle, you come out and it's a battle to the end.
What would you say is your biggest learning experience from that?
The one point that's constant is that if you're faced with a choice between doing what is right and what is popular, and this is really not original, this is Marcus Aurelius in his Meditations. If you face choice between what is right and what is popular, you must always do the right thing. If you do the right thing, you may annoy some people. Those people might be very powerful, you know, and they could make life uncomfortable for you, and they did make life uncomfortable for me for a while. But look, where's Jonathan now? Power is transient. He's an ex-president. He's in Bielsa. Nobody hears about him. Okay. Where are all of them? Where are all the people that people were terrified about? Where are they? They're now hiding. They're now being chased, and you know, and the very people who said they were friends, the people who kept telling them the sun shone out of their back and attacking me for this are very people now saying all sorts of things about them. I don't talk about him anymore. There is a new president here, you know, Buhari. He's somebody we love, respect, support. But again, as in my comments on the exchange rate policy, I take more pride in being able to say to a sitting president that you're wrong than saying to someone who can no longer do anything. Everybody can criticize Jonathan today. But I think people should learn to speak at the right time. And if you don't have the courage to speak when you should, then you should have the honor and dignity to keep quiet after that.
I have one more question. There are a lot of young people that are starting out in business in so many different industries, and they will look up to you. What you have done is phenomenal. And what would be your advice to them if they were starting in business in order to not even follow your footsteps, but get anywhere near your level of success?
Okay, first of all, I've never been a businessman.
Yes.
And I think I would be a total failure if I started a business, okay? I don't know how to handle money, okay? I'm a banker, I handle other people's money, okay? But I have no idea how to make money or how to keep it or how to build wealth. You know, I live from it. So I never give advice on business.
Right.
Okay? But at the end of the day, whatever you do, and this is basically my father talking to me as a young boy, saying to me, whatever you do, you must first of all ask yourself, who are you? And who are you is how would you like the world to remember you? It could be very mundane. You could decide that you're a person who will not be a minute late for every appointment. And you'll be amazed that long after you're dead, if people don't remember anything about you, they remember that you're never late for an appointment. Okay? For me, I have defined myself as someone who makes it his responsibility to speak truth to powerful people. And that's what I've been all my life. And that's about all that I'm going to be remembered for. When people, I mean, I look at my central bank years, I look at everything I've done in terms of fixing the banks, in terms of cashless Nigeria, in terms of low inflation, in terms of exchange rates, in terms, what do people talk about? My $20 billion letter, which is really nothing. It was not central banking, you know. I mean, and it's sad in a sense, you know, given how successful we were as a central bank and all the awards and all that, but all that people remember was that moment with Jonathan, or the moment I fired bank CEOs. It was always, for me, it's always that engagement with power that defines me. It's not how much money you make. Okay, so if you're in business and you decide that you want your business to make a social impact, and that's what you want to do, or you want you want to run business on the basis of a certain ethical framework, you know, or you want to target a particular social problem, say empower women, for example. I think whatever you do, if you're divorced from a core value and a value horizon, it's meaningless. If you make a lot of money and all it does is gives you a big house, it gives you a yacht, it gives you a jet, yeah. So that's what you own. It's not who you are. And that's really the joy of life. It's not the result. It's not how much money you make, but how do you do it?
Thank you. Thank you so much for this interview. You are absolutely phenomenal, Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II. I am absolutely blown away. Thank you very much for joining us on My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV.
Thank you. My friends have been trying to teach me humility. I don't think you're good for me.
Thank you.
All right.
Now, let's find out what his closest allies had to say about this amazing, inspirational guest.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على النبي الكريم. My name is Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II of Kano and District Head of Kano Municipal.
Hi, my name is Shahida Sanusi. I'm the daughter of the Emir of Kano.
My name is Olawale Edun, very good friends, family friends of His Highness the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II.
It's really hard for me to think about him as just an Emir because...
What I would say about him is, he is...
I mean, obviously, he's my father.
He's a man of tremendous wit and humor.
a humble leader.
He's one of our finest minds.
He's somebody who
He's one of our most competent professionals.
is the kind of leader who cares.
He's a scholar. He's a philosopher.
But to be honest, I think if I'm going to talk about him in two ways, I'd say that, first of all, he
Wants his people to take front seats in activities that will bring progress to their life and to the society.
a man of integrity, because as far as I can think back, my father has always asked me to do the right thing, and he has always done the right thing. He never really cared about the consequences when it came to doing the right thing, and
He often seems to be controversial because he's willing to make a stand. He's willing to take a position, and then it's for others to say whether they agree or disagree with him.
my father has always been the kind of person that cares about giving back. As a father, he never really asked us to do anything in particular with our lives, but then he always said, no matter what you're going to do, just make sure that it's going to benefit your people.
He's the kind of leader who cares much about his people, about the society he's leading, and at a larger level, the country in general.
I think he's a man of his word.
But at the same time, he's a great family man.
I think he made it easy for people to talk to him. And not just that, he's not just a leader, like a figure, but then, you know, every day I hear about different people coming for different cases, not just family members, but then people from villages will come all the way to bring maybe like family issues or property or anything, you know, to him, and he sits down with people and they judge the cases. And
He's a great person to have as a friend, and I think for the country as a whole, he's one of our jewels who can, for years to come, contribute tremendously to the development of the society as a whole.
just talking about how just I think he is, because I've never seen one particular person come to him to tell him something without him bringing the other party. And I think that has inspired me a lot in terms of, you know, like just thinking about the world and just knowing that no matter how close you are to a person, they might not necessarily be the right person, you know, like he doesn't just take sides. Yeah.
What I will say is I pray we'll have people like him in leadership positions that will be always there for the people, that will always be there for the country, and will come out and say the truth no matter how bitter it is.
There's an old saying that a good reputation is far more valuable than riches. In a world of extreme ostentatious wealth, sometimes the challenge for an entrepreneur is simply doing the right thing when everyone around them is looking for a quick get-rich scheme. Do you have what it takes to keep your head above waters and still maintain your values? My name is Peace Hyde, and this is My Worst Day on Forbes Africa TV.